You know when you get through a take and it's really good and you don't forget anything and you don't stumble across your words and then your camera turns off and you lose everything? That was the first time I filmed this video. So we're gonna see how we go. Hi everyone, my name is Steph. This is the Novelty Corner. This is a Books Beside My Bed video where I talk about the books that I have read in the last 7 days. Welcome if you're new here and welcome back if you have been here for a while. Yeah, we're gonna see if I can get through this entire video without my camera misbehaving. This is my reading week from the 1st until the 7th of August. I read a total of 8 things this week, 1,508 pages, and my yearly reading total is 308 books. I had some review copies this week. I have some picture books, some young adult and some adult titles, including some really bonkers, erotic, paranormal romance novellas. Buckle up, get ready for this wrap up. The first book that I'm going to talk about is Happy Hoppy Home by Tal Suwanakit, I think. This is a picture book by an Australian author and illustrator. It was sent to me by Scholastic for review, so thank you very much to them. It is the story of a family of hares who decide that their family home is now too small for them. It's too close and it's becoming a bit crowded. So they go in search of a new home and they think they find the perfect one. It's big, it has open spaces, they will have their own rooms, and yet as they stay there, it becomes too big for them and they have to decide what they're going to do next. It is gorgeous, it is cute. I really enjoyed reading it. It has beautiful illustrations and I know that there are plenty of kids who would love looking through this book and just seeing all the gorgeous pictures. Also from Scholastic, I received Dinosaur Dads. This one is by Leslie Gibbs and illustrated by Marjorie Crosby Farrell. This is the story of 3 baby dinosaurs who go on adventures with their dads. It's full of rhyming, it's brightly coloured and beautifully illustrated. I love these stylized dinosaurs. We currently have a dinosaur theme with my students, and despite the fact that we've gone back into remote learning because that's a thing, we are continuing our dinosaur theme online with lots of dinosaur themed activities, and this is definitely going to be a book that I share with them because it's a lot of fun. I also reread Last Guard by Nalini Singh. This is book 5 in the Side Trinity series. I read this about 2 weeks ago, so you guys have heard me talk about it fairly recently. I will have my recap and review out for it this week, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. It is the romance between 2 Psi who are both anchor hubs for the Psinet, which means that it is their job to make sure that the Psinet stays stable, and it's becoming increasingly difficult in this world. We have a disabled hero, we have a neurodiverse heroine, and the entire story was just great. I really enjoyed reading it the second time through because I definitely picked up on things I missed the first time. Another review copy I had was Sabriel by Garth Nix. This is an Australian young adult fantasy series, and this is the 25th anniversary edition and it is absolutely gorgeous. I love this artwork. It's so eerie and beautiful. It is part of the Old Kingdom series, and Sabriel is born the daughter of an Aporson and her father ends up raising her. The Aporson are necromancers with the ability to send the dead back through the 9 gates. So instead of raising the dead, they send them back. When she was 7 or 8 years old, her father sent her out of the Old Kingdom across the wall to attend a boarding school, and now that she's 16, nearly 17, she's about to graduate from that school when she discovers that her father has gone missing and is potentially dead. She returns to the Old Kingdom because she has her father's powers and she has to learn how to use them and use them fast because a malevolent evil has come back through the gates and is threatening the Old Kingdom. Sabriel is aided in her quest by a talking cat slash something else called Mogget, who is delightfully droll and possibly my favourite thing about this book, and also a palace guard who has been suspended in time as a wooden carving for hundreds of years. Parts of this book are a little bit slow, but overall I really enjoyed revisiting this world. I have not read it in nearly 2 decades and I was just so glad to get back to it and see if I still enjoyed it, and I did. A really great example of Australian young adult fiction. Then I read Getting Schooled by Christina C. Jones. This is the first book in the Wright Brothers series and was a recommendation by Izzy from Happy for Now. It is a black love contemporary romance story between Reese, who is a teacher's assistant for her mother who is a professor at college, and one of her mother's students, Jason, who is a mechanic and returned veteran. It's not quite a hate to love story. It is kind of a mild annoyance to love story because Reese does enjoy baiting Jason and he gives as good as he gets. Something to be aware of in this story though is that at the beginning of the book Reese is in a relationship with someone else. There is absolutely no cheating on Paige, but she is at a point where she is questioning that relationship and whether or not it's something that she wants to continue. Jason and Reese are both very competent, very capable characters, and I really enjoyed reading about them because they fit really well and they complement one another. We also discover that Jason is an amputee, and when Reese finds out, it is a really amazing scene in the book. It's also super steamy, and I really loved the way that Christina C. Jones wrote these characters. There are content warnings in this book for PTSD. Reese survived a car accident and she was the only survivor in that car accident that killed her father, so she is dealing a lot with that grief. and it does come out on page, so be aware of that going into it. I will definitely be continuing the Wright Brothers series and picking up more of Christina C. Jones's books. Then I read a completely bonkers book that Bree recommended in our buddy reading group called Morning Glory Milking Farm by C.M. Nacosta, which is part of their Monster Bait series. It is, erotic paranormal romance. It is about Violet, who needs money and has to find a job, and she ends up applying at the Morning Glory Milking Farm, which is a farm that milks minotaur semen, which is completely weird and you would think it would be gross, but the way that it's written, there's so much humor injected into this story between the people who work there that it was just really fun to read. It is also a beautiful slow burn romance between Violet and one of her clients, who is just the most awesome alpha character. So it is the relationship between a human and a minotaur, so be aware of that going into it. There is monster sex on page because that's what this genre is currently obsessed with, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. This paranormal world is just fun. There are so many really interesting characters. There is at least one more book out in the series already, which I will definitely try and pick up soon. Plus, they're set up for other books and other characters who all just sound amazing. Then I read Namaste with Sasquatch by Virginia Wade. This was recommended by Tara, who is in that same buddy reading group. It is another erotic paranormal romance story. This one was probably not my favorite, possibly because it seems to be a serial, so it ended on a cliffhanger. It is about Kaya, who goes off to a yoga retreat with some of her friends into the middle of the woods, and while they're out there, a scientific experiment escapes and kidnaps Kaya from the outdoor bathrooms from the camping grounds. I think I'm just not cut out for serials, but it was an interesting premise and an interesting setup. I'm not convinced that I'm going to continue it at any point, but I'm glad I gave it a shot. There are content warnings in this one for the monster sex, for drug use, and also for that cliffhanger ending. And then finally, I read Her Vigilante by Lillian Lark. You guys will know that I have read 3 previous Lillian Lark books, and this is the 4th book that she has out. So I think I've now read all of her back catalogue, and I can't wait for more. This is a dark romantic suspense and a relationship between an FBI agent and a serial killer. It was on my Kindle Unlimited TBR, which is why I picked it up. Evelyn Michaels is the FBI agent in charge of investigating the serial killer known as the Vigilante, and so far she hasn't had so much luck, but one of the quirks of the case is that after every crime scene is discovered, he sends a burner phone to her desk and contacts her. At the beginning of the book, Evelyn and her partner Jeremiah are at a new crime scene that looks like it could be a vigilante murder. However, Evelyn is not convinced and believes that it might be a copycat. Evelyn takes a risk and decides to contact the vigilante instead of waiting to be contacted, and in doing so changes the rules of their game. Things get complicated when another FBI agent turns up, one who specializes in copycat murders, and his name is Eugene, and he has to spend quite a bit of time working with Evelyn. This one is dark, it's a little bit suspenseful. I don't think that there was enough world building or information about the characters. I think there were a lot of things we just had to accept going forward, which was fine. It was super short. I think it was only 128 pages. But I think had this book been fleshed out even another 50 pages or so, it could have been one of my favorite serial killer FBI agent sort of stories. The content warnings for this one include murder, serial killers, PTSD, death of a wife and child. There is light bondage, there is handcuffs involved, and there's also risky unprotected sex behaviors which Evelyn exhibits as a coping mechanism. So be aware of that going into it. So those are the books that I read this week. In the comments, let me know if you have read any of these or if you're planning on picking them up. Alternatively, feel free to let me know something else you have been reading, or if you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, you can leave any kind of emoji that reminds you of school. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.